Right, this is page 14 in our note packet. We're learning about the formula for simple interest. And let's start with the definition. Interest is money that is paid for the use of borrowing money. So, for example, if you borrow money to buy a car or a house or even just on a credit card or something like that, then you usually pay interest to the company you borrow that money from, so that you're paying them back for being able to use their money to buy whatever it is you're buying. Or the other way around, when you have money in a bank account and you earn interest on it, it's because the bank is borrowing your money to loan to someone else. And so whichever way it is, whether it's you earning interest from a bank or whether you're paying interest to a loan, it still has to do with money that's being borrowed by somebody, and interest accrues because of that. Okay, so the formula is I equals PRT, and here's a list of what each of those variables mean. So I stands for interest, P is principal, which is the word for the amount of money that you're borrowing or that the bank is borrowing from you, the amount you have invested. R is rate. Now this is the part that causes people problems more than anything else, because usually when we talk about a rate, we talk about it as a percent, but you have to use a decimal when you do it in these problems. It's essential that that rate be expressed as a decimal in your equation. So decimal. Okay, we'll talk about that. T is time in years. If the time is in months, then you have to actually divide it by 12 to turn it into years, because there's 12 months in a year. Okay, let's look at some examples. How much simple interest will accumulate on a savings account that has $300 at 1.5% interest for 10 years? So let's fill in the blanks and see what information we have from our little sentence here, and then put it into our formula to get the answer. Okay, so principal is the amount of money that's being borrowed. In this case, the bank is borrowing it from you because you're putting it in your savings account. So that's 300. The interest rate is 1.5%, but in order for it to work correctly in the formula, we actually need to take that number and divide by 100. Or another way to do that is to move the decimal to the left. Move decimal left 2. So that takes our 1.5% and changes it to 0.015, because the decimal point moves from between the 1 and the 5 to before 2 places before the 1. So in order for it to be 2 places, we have to put a 0 in there to hold that place. Time says for 10 years. So notice how it's in years, not in months. So we don't have to divide by 12. We just say 10 years. Now here's where we're going to show our work. We're finding the interest. So I equals P. I'm just going to go ahead and write the formula down, and then I'll put the numbers in. So PRT. So P is principal, 300. R is rate, 0.015. And then T is years, 10. So then we just use a calculator. We multiply the 3 numbers together. So 300 times 0.015 times 10. And this says that over those 10 years, the bank is going to pay us $45 in interest. So $45 that you get just for your money sitting in the bank. That's like the easiest way to make money. Okay, let's try another example. Find the principal when the interest is 42 and the rate is 3 and the time is 5. Uh-oh, they're going to make us work backwards. So the interest this time is 42. That's I. The rate is 3%, so don't forget you have to change that to 0.03. And then the time is 5 years. So our formula, remember I equals PRT. Let's plug in what we know. So we're going to plug in 42 for I, so that goes at the beginning, and then an equal sign. We don't know what principal is. That's what we're trying to find, is the principal. So we're trying to find P. We know the rate is 0.03, and we know that the time is 5. Okay, we're going to multiply this is kind of like doing volume is length times width times height, right? Only you know the volume, but you don't know the length or something like that. It's similar to those types of problems. So what we want to do first is multiply this together. So 0.03 times 5. So 0.03 times 5, and I got 0.15. So now to get P by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.15. So P, our principal, is going to be equal to 42 divided by, so we have to go backwards, so instead of multiplying, we're dividing 0.15, and that was the number we got when we multiplied the other two numbers together. When you divide by a decimal like that, you get a bigger number. So your number needs to be bigger than 42 when you divide by a decimal, which makes sense because your principal should be bigger than 42. Uh-oh. I accidentally did what I told you not to do. So I need to do 42 divided by 0.15. I accidentally multiplied instead. So that gives me 280. That means I would need to put 280 in the bank for 5 years at 3% interest in order to earn $42 without doing anything but having my money in the bank. Okay, we're going to do a few other problems where we get to work backwards and find other things. So this next question, we're actually going to be finding the rate. So our first question, we found the interest, right? The second question, we found the principal. Now we're going to be finding the rate, and then the very last one is find the number of years. So that would be finding T. So this one was finding P, this one is R, this one is T, and the first one was I. Okay, find the rate when the interest is 56, so that's I. The principal is 700, there's P, and the time is 4 years, so that's T. So our formula, I equals PRT. We're going to plug in what we know. So that would be 56 for the interest, 700 for the principal. We don't know what the rate is, so I'm just going to leave an R. 4 for the time. And that's it. I just have that one variable that I don't know. So this time, it's just like the last problem. We're going to multiply these two numbers together first. So we'll go 700 times 4. So that means we will have, I'm just going to kind of rewrite this as a whole new equation. So the interest, 56, is equal to 700 times 4. So that'll be 2,800, because 7 times 4 is 28. So 700 times 4 will be 2,800 R, right? So then I'm just going to divide both sides by that 2,800. So divide, divide. So that literally just turns into 1. You don't actually have to do anything with that. So what you're doing in your calculator is you're plugging in 56 divided by 2,800. Okay, so I'm going to do that in my calculator. It's going to give me a decimal because 56 is a lot smaller number than 2,800 is. So that gave me 0.02. So now I prefer to give my answer as a percent. I'm going to multiply it by 100. And when I multiply that by 100, it moves our decimal place 2 places. So that will be 2% interest. So there's the decimal for the rate, and there's the percent for the rate. All right. Last one is finding time. We're going to find the number of years if the principal is 2,000. The rate is 2.7%, so the rate we're going to use is 0.027 because we have to move that decimal place over. And then the interest is 810. So again, our same exact formula, I equals PRT. We're going to plug in 810 for the interest, 2,000 for the principal, 0.027 for the rate, and we don't know the times, so we have to multiply these together first, right? So multiply those. Gives us 2,000 times 0.027, which is 54. So then to get t by itself, we divide both sides by 54. So that's going to be 810 divided by 54. So that 810 divided by 54 is 15 years. So when you're finding the interest, all you do is multiply the numbers together. When you're finding the principal or the rate or the time, you have to multiply the two numbers that they give you and then divide it from the interest to find the other number that you're missing. So 4 different types of problems that we can do with one formula. They're all very related, right? So